He got his hands on, very proud gentleman there. And that's got the old English plate. Sorry? Oh, it's a done deal with that car. The mother-in-law was taken. She said, yeah, wrap him up. But all our journeys to the farm back and forth, we used to lay in the back of a DS or an ID safari. A lot of the time he had safaris, and going to the bush and going up the old road through Lithgow and places like that. We were asleep in no time. The concrete road had no effect at all. We were just, and he drove every week between Sydney and the farm. That was pretty much his life for about 20 years. So.
And yet came a time when he walked away and just said, left it to you without any business deal being done.
Yeah, that was his style. I turned up there one day after being working in Europe, actually with Citroen for 2 years.
What were you doing there?
I first got a job with a garage, interestingly enough, called Continental Cars in Surrey, and I initially started with bar work, which was about £1 an hour, and then I applied for this job with a dealer, and I said, I know enough about Citroen to do this gig, and that was about £5 an hour, so it was a no-brainer to work for Citroen. And
were they retailers or a service?
Yeah, he was initially a used car Citroen dealer, very much like us, and his wife's brother was in Belgium, and he had a Citroen dealership, so we used to bring across brand new Acadian vans, and he was converting them from left to right, because in London at the time no one had commercial vans other than the little Ford Escort, and the Citroen van was far superior in terms of fuel, reliability, so he kicked that off, and then I stayed with him when he got hold of, he bought at a time 15 2CVs. So we set up this hire car company, and I said to him, why don't we advertise in the Aussie Backpackers magazine? There was a magazine called Lamb at the time. I said, young Aussies for £11 a day will rent your 2CVs all day long. So we got this gig going. The only problem was Aussies travelling in Europe would go across, and 15,000 miles later they'd bring these 2CVs back. And he said, what is it with you Aussies and South Africans and Kiwis? You just never stop driving. And I said, well, we're in a big country. It takes a long distances to get anywhere, and these people want to see the signs. So it was very successful. We used to flip them every 20,000 miles. He'd get a brand new batch of 2CVs, and we had the pleasure of running the first 500 miles on them. So you could take them home and flog the living daylights out of a 2CV, ready for hire cars.
So what have we got next here?
Yeah. Well, this is our trips to the farm in the IDs. So that's us up at Moldon.
How many acres?
It's about 2,500, so it's a big property for out that area, Orange.
How many head of cattle?
My sister's got about 600 head of cattle, so it's a proper farm. Yeah.
No wind farms yet?
No, they're on the way.
Really?
Yeah.
How many retired vehicles littered around the place?
Well, originally, the story with the vehicles was Dad went up there every week on a Tuesday, and we would trade in old IDs that weren't fit for purpose. So he said, I don't want to scrap them. I'll put them on the back of the old Mazda truck, and 10 hours later he got to Orange. And he'd do this every week, 2 a week. He'd just go the worst 2 and take them up. And that was his foresight. He's no other reason than not junking them, because at the time Sims Metal were giving us $50 a car, and he said, well, they're worth more to keep as spare parts. So by the time he'd finished, there was about 170 tractions, IDs, and fortunately about 10 years ago I said to my sister who lives up there, start clearing them out. So a lot found homes, people bought them to restore, and I'm glad, because if we hadn't saved them, some were just...
So are there none there now?
There's only probably a dozen left.
Only a dozen,
Yeah. And there was a stack of Goggamobiles, but they fortunately didn't rust, being fiberglass. But the other thing up there is we only get 28 inches of rain a year, so it was a good preservation.
Bill, I think remember a quote of your dad's where he said they were there and they weren't razor blades. They had been recycled into razor blades.
Exactly, yeah.
Actually, you talk of 28 inches a year. I was looking up on the RedX trial, which next Saturday, the 30th of August 1953, so 72 years ago, they got the first of the round Australia trials going. It didn't go to Western Australia, but went around the rest of Australia. And I'll go into more detail later. But prior to that, RedX was running, Red Shepherd was running 24-hour, 1,000-mile trials. And in May 1953, where one went to the Blue Mountains and all sorts of places and actually went over 1,000 k's in the 24 hours. In Sydney, I think it was May the 23rd, 1953, if anybody's thinking that recent times have been tough, Sydney had 11 inches of rain, 280 mils, when they were running that trial. But sorry to interrupt with that irrelevance. Let's have a look at another picture.
Well, there they are. So we catalogued every car. So we knew, we went up there and thought, let's just, if people are buying these remotely, at least we can tell them if it's good, bad or ugly. So that's rows upon rows of those.
Interesting to look by comparison with modern cars, the width of those tyres. So next one.
Oh yeah.
Aha.
So there's the old 6-digit phone number up there.
And a stock of new vehicles. So at that stage, you were retailing. That started in about, what, 68?
Yeah, 68 probably we started getting into full-blown, just purely Citroen, and he badged it the Citroen Centre. So I'm glad he actually registered that name before it disappeared. And Continental Cars as well, but then we had British and Continental over here at Haverfield. So we got into a running lawsuit with those guys for a while over the name. And he cheekily had British in before it, so yeah.
Did you ever sell a new car?
No, it was only until I came along that we pitched for the franchise with a Tico. So that was the start of our journey. Having come back from overseas and worked with that dealer, he did the same thing. He pitched for a new car dealership in Surrey. He got the dealership and went from strength to strength, and that's what I said to Dad, but we had that sort of father-son relationship where he had his own ideas, and I said, well, if you've got such a good client base and people here, why not take on the new franchise, do up the dealership? And he said, it's all yours, my boy, and shot off to the country what he loved. So that was the handover, a 10-minute handover, and off he went.
And it actually got Greg away from his business at the time, didn't it?
Yeah, Greg was working for Ernst & Young, and I was probably about 2 years into, retailing, and I just jokingly said one day, I need a company secretary, because he had his law degree, and 2 weeks later he said, I've resigned, I'm coming on board. Well, I said, you'll have to take a serious pay cut, and he took over the sort of parts department and things initially.
What was the greatest number of people you had in the business?
We had 14 at our peak. So, yeah, we had, the workshop went from strength to strength, because if you're running a solid workshop, and the amount of spares we carried at least we could turn cars around, not say to people, oh, it'll have to sit there for a month and we'll get parts. We decided to keep a very big inventory of spare parts, and that helped with car turnaround, particularly a lot of the country people. They couldn't afford to actually hang around for 2 or 3 days waiting for their car to be fixed, so it benefited them. It cost us a bit more in inventory holding, but it was certainly got your attention in customers.
And what was the service interval back in those days for oil changes and things?
It was generally a 6-month interval.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, and now we've pushed out, I still don't agree with this 2-year push out or 30,000 Ks. Even with good oils, you need to do it every 12 months. It's a no-brainer.
You talked of, you had 14 at one stage, but I remember fondly some of the great guys you had there up until when you closed. How did they go on when they were no longer employed by Continental Cars?
After we had the wake, and it was a tough month telling staff that had been there 20 odd years.
When
like
did you tell them? When?
We told them in March this year.
Right.
So
how long did it take you to get to that conclusion?
it took me about a month to get my head around that we had to close the business. When Citroen, Inchcape decided to pull the pin on Citroen, and apologies for not coming to your dinner, but that was right in the mix of negotiations with Inchcape and their ineptitude to really have a vision for Citroen, because I don't know if everyone knows, but in 2017 they terminated our franchise agreement. They put all of our dealerships on a 6-month dealer agreement, and that smelt from the start, because you're usually on a 3-year contract minimum as a dealer franchise, and some of the Citroen dealers that...
Well, it's not an incentive to invest, is it?
No.
In people or stock or anything.
But it was a worrying thing for us. We thought, okay, they're going to reposition Peugeot and Citroen, and they did a lot of talking about Peugeot and very little about Citroen. And when the email came through, not even a phone call, which I'm still very bitter about, that we're not renewing your franchise, that was probably more difficult pill to swallow than the last thing of Citroen pulling out. And 5 of the top Citroen dealers were terminated, which made no sense at the time. At that time we were national #1, and they took our dealership and gave it to Peter Warren's. And the other problem was Inchcape owned Trevette, and Trevette had 3 dealerships in Sydney, so we used to call it the Bermuda Triangle, because we're in the middle of that lot. And when you're a factory dealer, you get the creme de la creme of stock choices. So in some respects, we could see that'd be a difficult trading environment. Anyway, we just had to pivot, start doing used cars, get our head around not being a franchise, but we still did a lot of warranty work and stuff for people, no charge, just to help them out in terms of having people in our premises. And then I was in Europe with my son, and I got a phone call from Inchcape saying, would you come back 18 months later? And I said, we have no intention of coming back with you guys in any shape or form. And that persisted for another month, and I spoke to Greg and I said, how about we give them a list and see if they'll meet our requirements. And it was a long list, and it was all the things we wanted, because we had to take all the signage down. The cost to our business was immeasurable at the time, and 4 of the dealers and ourselves got involved in a class action with Inchcape, which in the end we said it's not going to go anywhere, because they're a multinational, their pockets were that deep. So we ended up just terminating that. They agreed to all our conditions and we got back on board and took Peugeot on at the same time. So we could see the diminishing models with Citroen and we said we need something else to sustain it, and we took on Peugeot commercials.
Let's have a look at that. Well, Peugeot commercials is, ties in with the Berlingo, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, and Berlingo,
which was a stuff up, wasn't it?
Berlingo was one of those cars Neville at the time was allocated 50 cars from Paris, and he said, I don't know if I want to take these. And we convinced him, we said, just have a go. I'm sure a small van in Australia will go well, and sure enough, the Berlingo went gangbusters across everywhere. We sold them up in the Northern Territory, everywhere.
Even the NRMA had the service.
We had the NRMA contract, and it was an incredible van, and that's where we bounced off that with Peugeot Commercial and said, it is a good business to be in. So hence we took that on.
There's lots of pictures to come. Let's look at the next one.
There it is.
Early days.
Early days. Look at those CXs, oh my God.
Yeah.
GSs.
I got a CX.
So that originally was a butcher's shop, which Dad bought, and we converted it to the spare parts, and that's where Wongy spent most of his life, Yong Wong.
His wife goes to the gym. I go to a neutral road.
Well, Wongy virtually brought us up. When Dad was in the country, Wongy was our surrogate dad for about 10 years. And along with guys that did their apprenticeship there, John Vanchop did his apprenticeship there from Chevrons, Les Francis, all these
Did the
guys.
apprenticeship well, very well. He collected the cars and paddocks exactly the same.
I think he had it worse than Dad did. And he still does.
And he wouldn't sell any of them.
No, at least that.
Not even the parts.
Yeah.
So, what have we got next?
What's up next? Yeah, I found that old sign in our clear out the other day, so that was a nice archive. I know you had your eyes on it, Michael.
Keep going.
God, the early days of working in the rain out the front, trying to get a CX going. Oh my God.
You know, what was the story with old Vic who worked there as well?
Yeah, Vic was there.
Because he worked in the rain. He worked in water.
That's why I couldn't. In the end, we had to build a proper workshop. There was enough days in the rain. I think Narelle, we had 3 tractions that day. Narelle bought the white one, I think. The old Daisy.
Here's something you might be able to help with. In the early 60s, I'm working at tube makers at Botany in their computer office. And they had a very smart young guy who'd been a bus conductor, who'd done an aptitude test, and it turned out that he could be a computer programmer. So he became a computer programmer at tube makers. It was about 64 or 5, or 6. And he bought ex the Malaysian High Commissioner an immaculate Light 15. And in about 18 months, he'd managed to damage every panel on the car, including on one occasion,
Champion.
he and his gal had been out drinking, and she in the front passenger seat with the suicide doors, the door flew open, or she opened it, and she fell out. And it took him about a block to realise that she still wasn't in the car. So anyway, I'm at work one day, and this guy comes in and he said, "That bloody Citroen," he said, "I've left it. I'm finished with it. I've had enough. Won't go." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I just parked it, left it where it broke down. I've had enough." He said, "You can have it if you want it." I said, "Thank you." He said, oh, by the way, if the police ask you where you got it, tell them you bought it from a bloke in a pub. So I got this thing. Now, did you ever see that? Black, light 15 that had a lot of body damage.
What that does remind me of the suicide doors. I remember Dad had about 150 doors stacked there, and he offered free doors. Come and get them. It's like a Facebook marketplace. Anyway, they turned up, and Ted Mack turns up because Dad told me the story no end. He got one. I think it was John Banchop to move all these doors. He finally selected 4 doors. And they're heavy doors. Those 2 doors hinged together weigh a ton. He's humped all these doors to one side, and he said, I'll take those 2. And then he walked up to Dad and said, and when are you going to fit them? And the next thing, Dad's booted Ted Mack out of the dealers. He chased him down the street, swearing and cursing at him. I'll never forget that story. And I thought, that's Ted Mack. He's got his last cent.
So,
Well, that traction ended up with an ID motor.
It did.
Air conditioning as well.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Still the
Well, there's
butcher's,
a cabrio.
it's still the butcher's shop.
Yeah. And that's the workshop at the back there, the old tin shed, leaking.
So,
There's a CX Turbo too, which is quite rare.
What year are those photos?
I can give you a guess. I bought my.
You
I
bought one around that time.
I bought a
didn't you?
blue CX. It might be the one that's sort of in the middle to the right there.
Yeah, we actually had
And-
that at the time.
And I remember at the time the red CX was 15,000, and it was a motor show car from '81. But this is like '91 when
Yeah.
I bought it.
So early 90s? Yeah. When did you buy your first one, Darren? I remember
86.
you didn't even have your license.
No. I like to drive and do.
Darren came up and he said, I want to buy this DS23 auto injection. I said, no you don't, Darren. That's too much motor car for a 17-year-old. Persistence though, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I sat in the back of it and went, ah.
Yeah.
customers.
No,
Customers
that
will
was
stock.
No, that blue one we bought from Bathurst, it was a beautiful car, and ended up selling that to the Midnight Oil drummer Rob Hurst. Bought that car.
Is that the workshop bill?
Yeah, that is a beautiful
The tin shed?
the shed.
Yeah.
We still got that sign, we found it the other day.
The shed's a mile long in pieces.
Yeah,
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 took it up there.
yeah. Anything that wasn't nailed down. Wow. That was our collection attractions. That was a Lagonda, I think, on the right. Aluminium body Lagonda.
Somebody restored that. Remember they took it?
They took it and restored it, yeah. But it was, all those timber doors were just, too hard. That was the clearance before we started. We knocked the old shed down, so that's gone. And that was the 300 panels that we had to get rid of. Oh, the dozers here. 93. CXGDI.
You built a very well thought out workshop.
Function incredibly well.
Very much.
Yeah. Just to let you know, the guy that's bought this site is actually a car dealer, European. So it won't be a block of flats. So it'll be nice. I'll have to drive past it in a month and see what he's got in there. But he's European.
Will there ever be another Citroen there?
Never. I think he's Porsche and Ferrari. Suitable for the local inhabitants, friend. Lamborghinis, you name it.
There's a bunch of bloody balls.
Yeah. It wasn't Punch Bowl, we always called it Roselands. It's the only way we got the eastern suburbs folks over.
Oh.
Yeah, that went to Queensland somewhere.
Still the,
That was one of our tech days, Car Club tech days. They were interesting.
Did you ever drive a D on 3 wheels in the street?
No, I never tried that.
I took.
Oh, there's a brand new Xantia, so that's the first. So we had discussions with Neville and or Miles, who was a really good friend, and asked him, could we sell new cars? And he said, no, we can't, because we've got 2 appointed dealers in Sydney when they relaunched the Xantia. So he said, what if we just buy the cars off you? And he said, well, we'll try that. So we started buying a Xantia here or there. The next thing you know, Miles rang up and said, you bought 10 offers this month, I think we need to consummate a dealership. You're outperforming the 2 city dealers. You're doubling there. So we got handed the franchise formally, and to be honest, Neville was probably the best guy we ever dealt with at Tico. Yeah. I mean, we can all bash distributors, but at Tico, Neville was passionate about the brand. Where Sign Derby, Inchcape, never really, there was never an individual in there like Neville who'd oversee things.
I think you're being slightly unfair to Neville. I think it would be fair to say that Neville's number one interest was making money.
Of course it was,
But
yes.
more importantly,
Yeah.
and this really is important, Neville wanted the dealers to be profitable. Most distributors don't care about that.
Absolutely.
In Neville's mind, a profitable dealer is a stable dealer who's there for the long term. And that was always Neville's principle. And he would have been breathing down Miles' neck to make sure that Miles was ensuring Bill was a profitable dealership, because he knew that would be a long-term business, long-term customers.
And you could actually pick up the phone and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
That was the difference. That Sign Derby and Inchcape, the revolving reps and things we had through those distributors, you need someone you can ring up on the day and say, how about we do a deal for 5 Xantias, you want to move them on, and Neville would go do it.
And that's another exceptional thing about Tico. In the longevity of staff there, Miles is literally retired at 75 just a few weeks ago after 36 years with the company.
Yeah.
And he's not alone. I was talking to their HR manager just a couple of days ago, and Jane has organised 5 30-year parties to celebrate 5 staff who've been at Tico for 30 years. You don't find that at any other distributor, factory owned.
well, the smart distributors realise that their only customers are their dealers.
Well,
It's not the people buying the cars retail. That's up to the dealers.
and Neville knows that the only place he can make money is in Australia and New Zealand, whereas someone who's working for a company that's got its headquarters in Munich, you know, Munich is most worried about making money for Munich, not for dealers out here.
You talk of Xantia, but you've got a good story about Plurial.
Yeah, we got, that was another deal with Neville, wasn't
We've
it?
all got good stories about
Yeah. But that poor little car ended up, a batch of them ended up in Japan, I think it was. And Neville, again proposed, what can we do with this car? And we said, well, if you've got a convertible under 30,000, you will sell it. You will sell it. We just didn't know it had the sensor drive gearbox in it when it got in. But it was popular. There's still the odd one running around, but we had great success with that car. And it didn't, hand on heart, ever leak, as most convertibles did. So It was a good little salesman for us.
Oh, looking very smart here.
There's
Bill, I think it would be fair to say you were the only dealer to have success with the
well,
program.
probably. There's a brand new XM in this showroom. That was our first leap of faith into $80,000 Citroens, which in that era was quite.
Did they sell okay?
Look, we were talking about earlier, flagship models are limited. You know, if the brand is perceived, they have to have a flagship car, a hero car. At the time in France, that was there to take President Mitterrand and a few of his cronies and bankers around in, but they never expect to sell many. But what surprised a lot of people here is how many people have put their hand up for cars like that out here, including Harry Seidler. He ended up buying one.
Yes.
But I think when we move on, the C6 was probably the best story that ever came out of Citroen.
We'll come to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, keep moving.
It's starting to look like a dealership.
Which was the best car, in sales-wise, new car for you?
Our peak year was in the late, like 2007, 2008. We peaked a few months where we were selling 30 Citroens a month. And that was brand new cars. That was because we had the C2, C3. Well, we had 2 variants of the C2, 3 variants of the C3, 5 or 6 C4s, 2 doors, 4 doors, manuals, the little coupe, the VDS coupe, which was doing all the rally work. Then we had variants of C5s, and then we had the C6. So we had end to end and the Berlingo. So we had this whole suite of cars to choose from, and it gave us a success in that
What
period.
was your best annual sales?
280. And I think the last year Citroen sold here was like, what, 60 cars or something.
So that's 280. The best national figure was 3,800.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think peak year, yeah. But like, you look back, the DS in 74, they sold 2,800 back then.
Yeah, well, that's such a good deal. Those run-out cars.
The run-out DSs, yeah.
I was at the motor show and like it was 4,680 or something for a
Brand new,
special.
yeah.
Brand new special.
Yeah.
6,700 for a 23 Palace.
Yeah.
And the first CXs were around that too. First
Yeah.
CXs were-
Unfortunately, the first CXs were 2.2 litre manual steering
Yeah.
and manuals. There wouldn't be a worse combination you can order in a.
Yeah, manual steer, 5 turns, locks and all.
Yeah.
I know because I bought one.
I remember telling a guy, do not buy that car, your wife will not drive it. And he bought the car and 2 months later he brought it back. Will you buy it back? She won't drive my car. It was impossible.
How did the Xantia sell for you?
Really well. Yeah. See, that's when we had, I forgot, we had the C4 Picasso. So we had such a range of cars that it wasn't difficult to get good volume.
Because you
C5.
covered the size of vehicles, the price of vehicles.
We had
and so
everything,
on, you know.
literally everything.
Yeah.
We sold the gold Berlingo was Vittoria Coffee, and they bought 20 of those for their coffee machine repairers. So we had some incredible success with Berlingo. Some of the, apart from NRMA, we had a few, all the dog walkers buy them, which turned into the Peugeot partner success with that as well. But that's the workshop at full steam. We've got the old 5CV, which Greg's kept that one. There's a 2CV there, I think, that Mike bought up the back there. And the DS, my cousin ended up with that. So we found homes for most of our classics.
But you were a real fan Well, of a number of Citroens, but de Chevaux too, weren't you?
Yeah, it took a while, and I wanted to get the collection at Charleston, so I ended up, took me about 6 years to get the yellow and black, burgundy and black, and the grey and grey to have the suite of it. So, great car.
And you've got a few models of them too, haven't you?
Yeah, quite a few.
How many models have you got of
I
Citroen?
think I've got about 160 or something. There's Storm Jacqueline. So that, those, your car's on there, Peter. So we had a meeting with Neville in at Catalina in the restaurant, and the president of the Asia Pacific president was out here when we were about to launch the C6, and we were at this restaurant, and he had a round table question. Rick DeVillion was there, various dealers from Melbourne, and he went round and said, all right, who's ordered a C6? And Rick DeVillion said, no, I'm not ordering one, which didn't go down too well. The Melbourne guy had ordered one, and then it got round to us, and we said, we've got 12 on order. And he went, my dealer on the Champs-Elysees only got 9 on order. He said, what are you thinking? He almost queried our business plan on it. But that was the day 6 of brand new ones arrived on trucks. And we had most of them pre-sold, but Storm Jacqueline, who was one of the head of Pickles Auctions, he demanded to get the first one on the road, and that was the start of the journey with C6, which was fantastic.
Display his car for you?
Yeah, he bought a 2.7, and then he came back and bought a 3 litre, and then he came back again and he said, right, Bill, I want a new one, and we said they're finished. And
he said to me that he's had every car you can think of, every car.
Yeah.
And so like the C6 was the best car he ever owned.
Yeah.
As a car all round.
And he took it up to Scone, up to his property every week. But we had the head of the ACCC at the time, Graham Samuels. He came and bought one off us, and he got no response in Melbourne. He rang us up and said, yeah, we said, yes, we got him in stock. So he flew up, and his driver brought him out to our dealership. He looked at the car and fell in love with it. We shipped it to Melbourne, traded in his, I don't know, it was the latest, greatest Lexus, which was about 12 months old. It was $150,000 at the time, the dearest Lexus you could buy. And he rang me up on delivery. He said, Phil, I took it to the office. No one has looked at my Lexus for 18 months. He said, I drove in the C6 and emptied the office. And everyone in the ACCC came down and stood around the car for half an hour. And the guy was just so tough. So it was a good story.
In my very young days, in my teenage years, I was taking a girl out who lived in Rose Bay Avenue, and her parents knew William Dobell. And they had a few sketches and things that he'd done, but I actually met him, and guess what he was driving? The DS. Yeah.
That photo there, where is it? Yeah, with me in it. We did replicate that photo. We were trying to replicate it as per the original lineup of DSs. So we did shoot one very similar.
So how many C6s did you end up selling?
48 in total.
8.
Of the 100, there was 101 sold, I think, total.
So you sold almost half of it.
What year was that?
Sorry?
What year was that?
From 206 to 212. The last one we launched was 212. Storm ended up coming back like Philip Adams, and he bought 3 in the end. He bought, the first car we got, C6, was petrol. It was homologated, what they call a sooty car, is it?
Yeah.
and this thing turned up at the dealership, brand new, but it had reams of checklists in it. So this was, I don't know, ex-factory, but it had...
It's SUUTI.
Yeah.
It's a car that is built to the Australian specification. It arrives, legally has to arrive before any other car arrives, and it's checked over to make sure it meets all the various Australian legal requirements. And until that approval is done, nothing can even be imported, let alone sold. And some sooty cars go on to be sold as cars. Some are squashed into metal balls or boxes. Because someone at the factory's missed something important out.
Well, if you're dealing with Neville Crichton, they're always sold.
Yes.
So we got this car.
Always sold somewhere.
Yeah, and Storm
Usually
bought it.
being the alternative.
And I said, look, the diesels will be here in a month. And he said, I don't care. I want that car. I want to be the first. Again, he had the first C5 in the country. So off he went in his petrol. And I said, you're going to take a bath on your trade-in because you've had it a month and you're bringing it back here. And it's petrol. I said, we are homologating to sell twin turbo diesel, which is the right car you should buy. And no, as far as he was concerned, he had to be first cab off the rank.
So, what have we got?
So yeah, 214, 215, just before we were terminated, we got number one 2 years running for Citroen. That was the DS3, DS5 and the little C3. So, and that was the first arrival. That was a bit like the C6 day. Our broker rang up and he said, what's this 15 cactuses or cars you've got arriving in 1 year? But the trouble with the cactus was they came in 28,000 different combinations. So unless you had a full suite of colours, bumps, different combos, you didn't have it covered. But it went okay, but it never took off. And I think it was because we didn't have the proper automatic. We had the semi-automatic, and a lot of Australians can't get their head around that. They love the car, but they just couldn't get used to the centre drive.
Manual petrol or the diesel semi-automatic.
Yeah, and then the 6-speed came out, and it was probably just too late. The 6-speed auto, which was a great gearbox.
How many of those run out cactuses did you end up buying?
Well, that was the interesting thing. When we were terminated, I kept in touch with some of the dealers, and I said, what's the stockpile of Citroens? And he said, no one's selling them because we've just got rid of all our dealers for the last year and a half. He said, we're sitting on about 100 cactus. And part of our negotiations with Inchcape was, you allocate us all the cactus at a price. We want them knocked down half price.
All the cactuses?
All of them. One of the other dealers got wind of it and actually took a third of them, but we managed to get 2/3. So we got 60 odd cars, but they were half price, so they were bargain basement.
Well,
You got one, didn't you?
it was 32.5 on the road,
Yeah,
and it was 22.5,
yeah,
and you threw it full glass sunroof
yeah,
and half leather,
yeah.
and I bought it on the 12th of June, which was my late dad's birthday. I got the GST back 2 days later, so it was down to 20.
Yeah.
And I wrote it off on the 30th of June against tax, the whole lot, so it was a free car.
All part of Inchcape.
And now,
Yeah.
6 years later, it's insured for 19.5 with NRO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was part and parcel of that list we gave Inchcape. So we did get some back on.
You've always been a smooth talker.
Not with Inchcape, they're not a beast you want to deal with. So that was the La Maison, they're rebranding globally. Your dealers have got to spend money on the showroom. It was a great fit out. We were really happy to do it. something that gave Citroen some brand identity out here. And one of the probably highlights for us was when we got a word that Linda Jackson, the CEO from Citroen, was going to pay us a visit. So that was sort of choreographed like Donald Trump arriving at the dealership. There was 6-car posse of heavyweights from Inchcape, including Linda with the team. But she was very passionate for the brand. She did a lot of great things with Citroen globally before she shifted across to Peugeot. But that was probably at the height of their rebranding for the marque. But it was brilliant to have someone at that level actually come out to a local dealership and chat to staff. She chatted to all the techs, everyone. Really, really grounded lady.
What do you think is going to happen with Citroen worldwide now? Stellantis?
Stellantis, yeah. I looking at their European figures, they've made some pretty big inroads with some smart pricing with their resizing of cars, C3s. The big cars are gone. They're into that mid SUV, EV hybrid range, and I think the Europeans are struggling. If you look at what's going on in Russia, when Citroen had a massive actual take in Russia, they had good traction in Russia for years. Now BYD and the other suite of EVs have half the Russian market, and these are the markets Citroen need to survive. So I think it's a struggle.
So you think they're going to survive?
I think Citroen will survive. Yeah, they're big enough to survive, but they'll have to remap. You know, they'll have to really reset themselves.
The new C3 is going down well in the UK.
Yeah.
You have to remember that it's the French who are in charge of Stellantis. So if they're going to drop any brands, it won't be the French brands that come first.
Yeah, Mick?
Well, there's a debate there, isn't there? The chief executive is French, and then you've got the new guy, he's Italian.
Yeah, it's the French who are in charge. The Agnellis are there. Well, the Agnellis around it because they feel and they've got to keep the Italian government. So
I don't know
you
what
see
the
the
next one
big
is.
problem
Good.
they have with the Italian government.
No, there's a couple.
Yeah.
I sent you a couple across, but it doesn't.
There's both batches there.
Hey?
I've got both batches.
So Bill, will we get anything like the OLED?
Oh, look, it's the thing with homologation out here, which kills a lot of the fun. You know, there was models over the years that we just wanted to get our teeth into out here, and we talked to the distributor, they do the numbers and go, it costs so much getting the end cap and crashing cars. You know, they've got to crash, I don't know if they crashed the C6, but you know, they've got to do that to get the cars homologated for here, and it's just manufacturers going, unless we can see high volumes, we're not going to bring the car.
And some of the cars just don't meet Australian design requirements. The AMI, forget it, it doesn't even begin to meet any design requirements here. And so I think I mentioned last time, do you remember that? Did you get to drive the wonderful Citroen DS3 from Citroen Motorsport? We had one out there.
Yeah.
And it was just a brilliant car. But the suspension was too low. It was lower than a Ferrari 458 Grand Paris, and there's no way of altering it, so it couldn't be sold in Australia.
So, I think we've just about covered
Yeah.
your business, and I was looking up some dates that are relevant to Citroen and motoring and motorsport, and I've got this one of the first of the Round Australia trials, the Red X in 1953. Now, this was before they actually had a date for the start of it.